If Rimworld and the Chinese novels had an insanely chaotic baby, this game would be it. This is Amazing Cultivation Simulator. On the surface, it looks just like a Chinese Rimworld clone. But underneath, it's a terrifyingly deep simulator where you build a sect, manage immortal cultivators, and try not to explode because your bedroom's feng shui was slightly off. Now, I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. I don't know how to reach immortality, I don't understand elemental balance, and I'm pretty sure my sect leader is currently dying of a heat stroke. Can a complete beginner actually survive this game, ascend to godhood, and build a legendary sect? Or will my entire cult implode in the first 5 minutes? Let's find out. After finally getting a grip on the controls, the first thing I did was build a little house around all our starting loot. Let's officially call this the storage area. Once the blueprints were set, I watched my little mortal cultivators gather up the materials and build it bit by bit. Shortly after finishing the storage area, night fell, so I decided my little servants needed some proper accommodation. At the time, I had zero knowledge of the game's feng shui mechanic, something that would definitely come back to bite me in the ass later. With the bedroom and a storage room checked off, we obviously needed a workshop as well. So, after clearing the ground, I laid out the blueprints for that as well. As the workshop finally completed, we were ready to start growing our numbers. But then, something unexpected happened. A passing by refugee appeared, asking to join our sect. After checking her stats, I deemed her fit for the path to immortality, so we welcomed her in. Once the 5th member joined, I checked in on our main character, Hong Wei. His foundation was coming along nicely, bringing him one step closer to finally becoming a real cultivator. After putting him hard to work for a few days, he finally reached the threshold. And since our sect only owned a single manual, he didn't exactly have much of a choice when it came to make his breakthrough. Just like that, 17 in-game days after starting, I finally had my first real cultivator. Hong Wei had officially stepped into Qi refining. With a real cultivator on the team, I could officially found our sect. I named it All Heaven Valley. And after choosing Hong Wei as the sect leader, I opened up the world map and sent him on an adventure to fetch some iron ore. Just after he got back, a notification popped up. A group of bandits was attacking the sect. We couldn't allow that, so I sent Hong Wei to handle them. And just look at how easily a real cultivator slaughters a mortal bandit. Yeah, safe to say, the sect is completely protected as long as Hong Wei is home. Moving forward, I tried figuring out how building and feng shui work in the game, but I just couldn't wrap my head around it. So instead of watching a YouTube guide, I grabbed a few blueprints of the Steam workshop to start building a bit more optimally. Back in the game, I took my sweet time setting down all the blueprints and deciding where everything should go. I decided an outdoor well would be better than an indoor one, and I laid out separate bedrooms for the outer disciples to keep their stress down and boost their mood. After setting down the first few blueprints, it became clear that I was in a dire need of materials. So I got back to work and immediately began crafting. But just having accommodation for my outer disciples wouldn't cut it for much longer, as my roster of inner disciples kept growing. Plus, inner disciples hate sharing bedrooms. It stresses them out, makes them mentally unstable, and ultimately messes up their health and cultivation. So I added 2 inner disciple houses with some more furniture. And lastly for now, I also set up a kitchen and a dining area, as well as a storage for the food. With my feng shui finally in order, all that was left was to gather the ever-growing list of materials I'd accumulated. I did this by sending my inner disciple, Pu Yarui, out on multiple adventures while also scavenging every last resource of our local map. Then, late one night while my 2 inner disciples and my new pet monster dog were busy cultivating, enemies managed to sneak in and attack one of my outer disciples. Sadly, Wu Chi didn't make it. Hellbent on revenge, I sent both Hongwei and Puyarui straight after the intruders. And after taking care of them with ease, I decided it was only right to give my fallen disciple a proper burial. With my first death in the books, I knew I had to overhaul my defenses and workflow. I decided to build dedicated houses for all my crafting needs, making it easier to gear up my disciples so that they might actually stand a chance at defending themselves. And just like the outer disciples needed to get stronger, it was high time I built a proper cultivation platform for my inner disciples. So after a quick detour to the wiki to find out and figure out how lingering chi actually works, I built this. And just look at how fast he's gathering chi now. And just like that, his chi was capped and it was time for a breakthrough. Sitting at an 80% success rate, I figured it was well worth the gamble. And look at that. I now have a core shaping cultivator on the roster. I'm no longer just a newbie in the cultivation world. I actually have a force to be reckoned with. And what better way to celebrate than by training my dog to automatically exterminate intruders on sight. With a guard dog on duty and a much stronger cultivator in my ranks, it was high time to take Hongwei out on an adventure. And what can possibly be better than sending him straight into the Demon Emperor's tomb? Just before his breakthrough, news reached our sect that its doors, which stay sealed for 3 years at a time, were open for under a month. Talk about perfect timing. And look at the rewards we got. One of the rewards was a brand new manual. A manual of exploitation of external pleasures. It definitely doesn't sound pleasant. And honestly, I'm starting to see why the former owner was called the Demon Emperor. Shortly after recruiting my 3rd inner disciple, I finally got the notification I'd been waiting for. See, back in the prologue, your starting roster actually belonged to a much larger sect. One filled with cultivators of unfathomable power. But after it was wiped out, my group was forced to flee. I recently sent Hongwei back to inspect the damage, and it turns out he managed to scavenge some of our old manuals. With these new manuals, I promoted yet another outer disciple to inner status. This time focusing on the wood element law, which meant I needed a brand new cultivation platform. And it's high time I actually explained how lingering chi works in Amazing Cultivation Simulator. Basically, all the items have an elemental affinity and carry chi, the fundamental energy present in everything. High-tier magical items hold tons of chi, while everyday materials hold very little. Simple enough, right? Well, it gets trickier. You also have to factor in elemental interactions and feng shui when designing cultivation setups. If you stick a fire cultivator in a water-heavy room, the environment actively smothers them instead of boosting their growth. My old platform used spirit wood, because wood fuels fire. Makes sense, right? So, for my new wood cultivator, what's better way to boost their growth than with water? It's literally just like watering a plant. And while that's under construction, I think it's the perfect time to take a step back and look at the entire sect. Down to the south, we've got our food storage, the stove, and the dining area. Just north of that we have 2 storage rooms and a bedroom. Then, as you can see here, we've got plenty of outer disciple housing, along with 3 dedicated cultivator rooms. Though, I just realized I'm going to need a 4th one for my new wood cultivator. Oh, and one more small detail. Our entire sect has become completely infested with animal poop, courtesy of both the local wildlife and our own god dog. And I guess that's all I've got for you guys in this video. We went from a tiny group of mortals to a solid small-scale sect with 4 actual cultivators and a guardian beast watching over our mortal crew. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like, and if you want to see more content and help the channel grow, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment with your thoughts on the game, and I'll see you all in the next one.